Hello and warm welcome. We are all set for today's leadership discussion on the topical theme, manufacturing transformation, powering up for Industry 4.0 to learning that works. For those who are not aware, this is a part of exclusive thought leadership series brought to you by ETHRWorld and Coursera. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to the two guests joining us for this riveting conversation. Please join me in welcoming Prateek Mehta, Head Mahindra Leadership University Mahindra Group, and Dallas Krishnan, MD Coursera Enterprise, India, Australia, and New Zealand. Welcome to this fireside chat. Let's begin. Hello, Prateek and Dallas. Good to have you here.
Pleasure being here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Same here. Good to meet both of you.
With that, let's begin this discussion. L&D is not just a business function, it is an enabler that helps companies to grapple with the new patterns of work. So Prateek, I'd like to ask you first, in the ever-evolving world of work, what are the mega L&D trends that will shape the future of the manufacturing industry?
I can see you're concerned with that question, right? Because mega trends keep on changing ever so often. But the reality is, over the last, post-COVID, we've seen three trends play out really consistently, and they continue to remain relevant in my opinion. And those three trends are really, one is an increasing focus on, digital learning. So how can you sort of learn newer and newer relevant skills using subscription-based platforms such as Coursera, for example, right? The second part, I believe that trend is going to keep on continuing. The second important trend, which increasingly is gaining prominence, is making learning available within the flow of work itself. If you think about it, a lot of, your human attention span has reduced significantly post-COVID. You're seeing it's not always possible for someone to stay in a classroom forever. That's part one. Part two is that it's just from a cost point of view, it just doesn't make sense to, have so many people in the classroom all the time. And then the third part is, why should you wait for learning? Why should you wait for that classroom opportunity? Why can't you just have it available on demand, right? So how do you enable learning in the flow of work, particularly using experience platforms? Mahindra does a lot of work now with a very well-known experience platform, right? So that's your second big mega trend which we are seeing. And the third, and this is getting a little bit more specific, and this is particularly true in the context of not only manufacturing industries, but heavy industries in general, is the use of emerging technologies to really focus on learning, right? We all know about metaverse and the use of AR and VR. And while AR, VR utilization right now is restricted because of cost factors, I see that in the distant future, well, not too distant future rather, it becoming a lot more mainstream. If not across the entire L&D spectrum, then certainly for those skills which are mission critical. For example, let's say safety or let's say working in simulated environments on, CapEx machineries, which are very, very expensive and you really can't make mistakes when you're working on the actual thing or so on, right? So, like I said, three big themes which come out for us. One is a very sharp focus on digital learning. Second, enabling learning in the flow of work using experience-based platforms. And third is a very sharp focus on metaverse in the not too distant future.
Valid points, Prateek. Dallas, I'd like to ask you the same thing. Given that Coursera works across industries, how would you summarize the trends you see amongst your partners from the manufacturing industries?
Yeah. So this is probably we had a study which was done across industries. We published this report annually. It's called the Industry Skills Report. And manufacturing learners are growing at, let's say, if the average is about X, manufacturing is about 1.5X. So you have more number of people from manufacturing who are trying to learn on the Coursera platform. So that's one high-level data. Now, if I step that into a little bit deeper, I'll pick 4 areas where the manufacturing learners are actually over-indexing. The first one is not at all surprising. Supply chain systems, right? It's about 2.4x everybody else, right? So that's one area we see manufacturing learners picking up a lot of things. Second one, which in the context of an industry which is people and machines, I would say people may think that it comes as a surprise. Organizational development. There is a lot more people focus, organizational development focus. That's about 2.25x, right, than the average. The third one, not surprising again, operations management, 2.5 to almost 2x. The fourth one, which is a new skill given the scale at which manufacturing is picking up, is this new skill where I think project management is becoming very critical that we are seeing across functions. It's not just the project functions when we're setting up plants and all that. Projects in itself have become much more micro and much more spread across many departments, including in departments like sales, where project management skills are starting to get more relevant. That's about 1.68. And then you have strategy, which is about 1.5x, right? So there's some more data that I can give you, but it clearly tells you that one, it's a whole gamut of learning. And then, of course, this is an area where we do feel there is a lot more innovation happening. When you link a lot more learners, you can always say that is a place where there is a lot of change and new things that are happening, right? So that's some data points to support what I'm seeing here.
Interesting, Dallas. Prateek, I'd like to ask you that, it's a given that technologies of Industry 4.0 has completely disrupted the manufacturing industry, like any other industry. So how are you building an effective L&D strategy that aligns with digital upskilling of your workforce to be able to participate in innovation and use these technologies?
I think it's $1 million question. If you think about it, I don't believe there is any role left in your typical organization structure today, which should not become a technology leader at some point. You really cannot you really cannot have roles which are technology agnostic anymore. And we've realized this for a while now. And what we've done is we're almost thinking about it as a pyramidical approach, right? So think about your pyramid, break it into 4 parts. And what we are doing is for each layer of that pyramid, we're doubling down on, how can we improve the technology awareness? And when I say awareness, it's not limited to, do you know blockchain or you don't, or do you know RPA or do you not? But I would believe that there are very few people left who don't know or, haven't heard about the word like a blockchain or ChatGPT or, generative AI or whatever. Everyone knows about it. So it's no longer just informing them about that. Increasingly, what we are doing now is getting them to take on immersive experiences of those technologies as step one. And step two is then actually getting them to work with the technology themselves. So for example, with one of our senior leaders, we not only got them to experience AI, but we also got him to create a AI model of his own in a very short span of time. What that does for this individual and people like that is, once you've sort of played around with that technology, the fear of that technology disappears. That's part one. And then part two is the next immediate thing which happens is you start visualizing use cases within your own business. And we've started doing that with the hope to scale it up significantly across the entire group. And we're doing that at the top of the house. At the middle of the house, what we're doing is instead of having a shorter program on it, we're sort of broadening the program duration itself, bringing together, let's say, partnerships with universities, partnerships with external practitioners, and so on, so that we can build deeper skills in that space. And finally, at the bottom of the pyramid, we are leveraging digital learning in a very big way. Last year, this time, we launched our digital learning platform with about 23,000 users on it. And that is wave one, in my opinion, given the sheer breadth of the group, right? And through the platform itself, we continue to push knowledge around different emerging technologies, be it through masterclasses, be it through course recommendations, be it through articles, podcasts, so on and so forth. Because it's a very, very strong belief within the group that we need to be technology first going forward. So that's how we are really restructuring our entire learning strategy to become a lot more digital first, as it were.
Interesting. Pratik, I'm glad you mentioned ChatGPT and generative AI, because now I'm going to ask Dallas, given that you do so many studies for L&D and skilling needs, how would you say that generative AI is going to disrupt the way people learn digitally?
Okay, I'll probably not use the word disrupt here, right? Because it's not really disruptive in that sense. Many of these technologies are evolutionary in nature, and then it's about augmentation of a lot of the work that you do, right? So disruption is about leaving the past. I don't think that's going to happen, especially in the context of learning. Finally, it's the human brain and it's us and the attitude, right? So unless that thing comes in, nothing else matters. So that remains the core at which, how do you push a learner to be motivated, and what drives him to learn? And everything else is around to support that. And towards that point is where generative AI is one of the, I would say, a technology that can help, right? Gen AI is one. AR, VR that Pratik spoke about is definitely another area, especially in the context of industries like manufacturing. I'll give you a couple of examples of what Coursera is trying to do here. It's not limited to the two examples. There are a lot more possibilities. But the way we focus this, we said, okay, let's first look at learner and then look at the ability to make that learning more personalized. How could we do that? And how can we use a technology like Gen AI to support that part, right? Now, we know that there's a lot of content out there. And then when a learner learns, in a async learning, the thing that he misses out is context, right? If he has a question or a clarification, where learning in the moment, he wants some interaction with somebody, right? In a live class environment, he can ask a question, but there is an engagement. So how can we replicate that in a digital environment is the first use case that we are experimenting with. So we currently have a feature called Coursera Coach. Now this is available internally. We all use it before we will be announcing it out into the world. We announced it as a feature at Coursera Day, which was about a few weeks back at IIT Mumbai. It will be GA in a couple of quarters, right? So the way it does is, let's say I'm going through a course. Currently, I'm taking a course from IMA on leadership skills by Dr. Vishal Gupta. Now, as I'm going through the course, now he brings some wonderful analogies from Mahabharata, right? So he brings Indian mythology. He links that with the context of leadership. And I'm going through that, and there was a point where I said, I don't know what this means, right? I may or may not have a context. So I press the coach button. It's like somebody with two glasses. I open up and then say, in this video, this is the context that I would like to know. Can you link it to saying, in my job, where will this be more effective? Right? So it brings that context and then gives me a set of answers. Similarly, I could say I'm in the steel industry or in the automotive industry. Does it really matter to me? Right? So it gives me a couple of scenarios and examples, and it says this is what it is. And it could be something as simple as that. I'm going through a course on VR, and I'm somebody on the shop floor. They said, "Do I really need to learn this? Why is it important to my role?" And then it gives me the importance of that. The way this is done is that we've used the ChatGPT's LLM model, but the data set is what we have on Coursera, which is the 10,000 plus videos and projects and all the reading material and other stuff that we have on the platform. And they happen to be all credentialed content, right? It's not the internet, right? So when you go to a public ChatGPT, you are not sure of the probability of accuracy on what that response may or may not be, right? So here, by using that model in a credentialed content, it kind of gives a more interactive approach for the learner. So that's one element where the learner is the focus. The second focus that we built is something which is around learning administrators, because finally they are the ones, especially in corporates, they want to bring the learning to be more contextual to the business outcomes and the imperatives that the organization is going through, right? You don't want to leave it to the learner. One is for the learner to go and pick up and do what you want. But an L&D department essentially tries to attach learning much more closely to the business outcome, business strategy, and the future of job or the future of skills that those organizations need to do. So in that context, one of the stuff that we always heard is, how do I make a combination of some of the great content that you have, but there is a Mahindra context that I would like to bring in that video. So we are actually experimenting with a product called Course Builder. So from an L&D perspective, what it does is that if you were to create content, it probably would have been weeks of effort. By bringing in a tool like a Course Builder, which has GenAI features, it's an interactive one. If I want to build a leadership course with focus on DNAI and sustainability, that could be the statement. I have these 4 videos to upload, which is from my previous classes or the masterclass that Pratik said. I had a masterclass on this from some industry expert. I want these videos to be used. And then I could also say, I also want to pick videos from the Coursera catalog, right? The total duration of the course need not be more than, let's say, 45 minutes. So it gives me a snippet, gives me a structure. It actually builds a course structure. All of that is done by the system. The learning program administrator can go through it, make edits, go to a point and say, you know what, this is my video, but in this video, I want an example from, let's say, Coursera credential content. So in his own video, he embeds another set of source and makes the learning material far more engaging. So that's the second feature. So these are the 2 things that I'm talking about as of now. There are some new things that we're doing in AR, VR as well, especially because there are areas like language learning, communication, and there are areas, especially in manufacturing and medical science, where there is a touch and feel of the 3D dimension of the object is extremely important in figuring out what that actually means, right? So those are other areas that some work is going on. So yeah, technology will be amazing as an enabler, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more that will keep coming up.
Yeah, we'll wait to hear about all that, Dallas, soon from you.
Sure.
Pratik, I just want to change the direction a bit, and I want to talk about the workforce. I want to talk about the employees now, given that, we just sailed past Great Resignation. Not sure if in every industry we sailed past it. But one thing is very clear, that the workforce is not coming to your organization just to work. They want to learn. Your organization needs to be a learning organization today. So how are you designing learning framework for the workforce that works for, both theoretical knowledge as well as practical implementation?
Yeah, I think that's really relevant. One thing which the Great Resignation taught everyone was, we need to start thinking about the what's in it for me component from an employee lens as well, right? And increasingly, if you look at some of the research which is out there, it's going to tell you that, look, employees stay within the organization when they get greater learning opportunities, when they see, careers is one very big thing. And the second most important thing which also kicks in is the ability to learn and grow your own skill sets. And what we've been doing to that effect is, instead of shaping MLU, originally what it was meant to be was, limited to, let's say, a certain number of levels within the organization. We made MLU accessible almost to everyone. And that's the premise on which the new learning operating model has been built on, right? So if I were to take a step back, today MLU caters to your top of the house through a set of functional accelerators, your leadership development programs, and so on. But we also have dedicated academies which focus on certain functional groups. We've actually identified a set of 12 power skills which are available to everyone, irrespective of which management level you sit on. And they are not only available as classroom training sessions, but they're also available as VILTs, podcasts, masterclasses, articles, online courses, so on and so forth. And supporting all of this, we've got our own digital platform as well. So what that does is, instead of just taking, I would say, a myopic view of it and say that, okay, let's just focus on this set of employees versus that set of employees, we're trying to see that how can we cast our net a lot more wider. With the simple intent being is that, can we make learning available on demand to as many number of employees as possible? And while while our learning experience platform only covers, let's say, 23,000 employees at this point, some of our content partnerships allow us to cover nearly 1 lakh employees. So at any given point, we're making sure that if an employee wants to learn a new skill, if they want to invest in themselves, we will match them every step of the way. We will make sure that they feel empowered across their entire learning journey, right? Now, is that an easy task to achieve, and do we always succeed? Probably not, right? But is the intent in place, and are there actions in place to make it happen? Absolutely. And I would say that month on month, we essentially continue to make progress on this journey as well. We monitor it and track it rigorously. We look at adoption rates of our platforms. We look at consumption patterns of the various content pieces. We apply concepts of nudge. As much as possible. We make learning available as freely accessible as possible within the group, so that nobody feels that they were left behind. The other thing which we've been consciously doing is making sure that we tone down theory as much as possible and tone up application as much as possible, because there are two reasons for it. One is, I think the patience to accept theory has gone down dramatically over a period of time, particularly so post-COVID, right? And people are increasingly concerned that, okay, I'm happy to learn something, as Dallas just mentioned, but how is it relevant to my role? Answer the exam question quickly. So we make sure that we tone down the theoretical component as much as possible. And at the same time, we try and build as much application into our programs as is feasible. So let's say something, I gave you the example of what we are doing in emerging technology, right? Recently, when we got people to understand metaverse, instead of just asking them to watch a video on metaverse, we got them to build a virtual showroom of their own within the metaverse within a period of 2.5 to 3 hours. And we use no-code, low-code technology. We had facilitators who could actually help us with that. And what that does is it gets people to try it in the moment itself. The more application we bring to the table, greater is the stickiness of the learning, greater is the pull for the program itself, and most importantly, you are able to diminish the fear of the concept as quickly as possible, right? So that's broadly how we've been able to sort of drive our learning strategy over the past 12 odd months.
Dallas, recently employment surveys, there was one done in 8 powerful countries, where the surveyors were from 8 powerful countries, and India, employers in India are 85% more likely to hire on average candidate who have a professional certificate. So how has Coursera been able to help organizations in this regard?
Yeah. First, I want to just continue on Prateek's point around, and I'll build on that because they are interlinked. This is the context of more practical, more project-oriented learning, right? And then if they're shorter, even better, right? So in the context of when we designed the platform, and we have evolved over the last 10 odd years of our existence, from being a very course-driven, 10-hour course-driven structure to a multi-format learning, where the shortest form is what we call as clips, which is a few minutes, 4-5 minutes. But the way they're stacked is that they're interconnected. We know that people have shorter attention spans. So I would love to have them go and pick up a 4-minute video, learn something. Maybe I want to then test to do a project, which is typically an hour. Let's say it's an Excel, something as simple as financial modeling in Excel, right? So I might want to just, how do I do this on Excel? Let's say as simplest of things. How do I do CAGR calculation, right? So that's somebody does a small video, and very quickly he wants to actually go to a hands-on lab and a project and then test it out. And then he says, it'll give a project saying, okay, now that you learned this, where can it, in the financial modeling scenario, here is how it is used in a budget planning, right? So how do you want to use this in a budget planning process? And it takes you through that process. It's more hands-on. So we are seeing that multi-format learning, which is interconnected, makes the learner to move from very short formats to, at the other end, other extreme is to become a specialist or an expert. People find interest and then they start looking at opportunities to do talent mobility as well, right? People get interested in new areas. Somebody moves from supply chain all the way to data science because he has found a new interest. And those are the areas where what we have started doing is that we started collecting and working with a lot of industry players to say that what are the most in demand, professional skills or professional certifications that allow for people to show that they have a credential, learn that credential and learn that skill, and then get into a new job, right? And now, this could be an early career person, a person who is just starting off from college. This could be a person who is in the job but is a switcher, career switcher. And how do you give them a platform for that? And that's the area where industry macro credentials is something that is seen very positively. Let's say, I know Pratik, Mahindra is has a big cloud transformation going on in their organization. Right? Now, AWS, Google, Azure are three platforms in which there are multiple projects that are running. People in technology and people in business are moving into these spaces to create new apps because this is about agility, speed. Pratik also spoke about low code, no code platforms, which brings a lot more business people to try and build new applications and innovative stuff. So how do you enable that is where what we have done is that we have made a collection of these industry certifications around certain roles, and so that people are not searching what to do, right? Or you know what, in my organization, I'm here. This is the role I want to get to. Now, if I want to get to that role, here are the set of industry credentials or industry certifications that you need to do. So we launched a product called Career Academy, which houses about 30 odd job roles today, starting from business job roles like an HR analyst, a supply chain analyst, all the way to technology roles like a data science, data analyst, a data scientist, or a software developer, or an AI developer, or an AI engineer, right? DevOps is a big area, especially in cloud transformation. So a DevOps engineer, so on and so forth. So it spans all of that, business areas, sales and marketing areas, technology areas, job role driven industry credentials. And industry credentials, when it is coming from, if you learn cloud from a Microsoft, Azure, a GCP, or an AWS, that is far more authenticated than learning from me, the individual. I know AWS, but I'm not authenticated to give the most credential. My knowledge will be limited to my knowledge. When AWS comes and presents it, it will be in the context of what is the latest and what is it that they are certifying as the official learning path, right? So that's the difference that we see when we get industry credentials on the platform. We see a lot of uptake in this career switchers in the professional world, and we also see a lot of career starters in the university campuses picking this up to direct their careers into areas that where the degree is like a passport, but this becomes like a visa that allows them to enter into specific job categories. Right? So.
Any point on the professional certificate, Dallas, before we close this discussion?
So the professional certificate, yeah. So go ahead.
No, I was asking that does Coursera give professional certificates that are recognized by employers here to enhance employability of the youth?
Yes. So the industry certifications are what we also refer to as professional certifications, and they do get recognized because they do come from Coursera and the industry partner, Salesforce, Google, IBM, Meta. So they all. AWS, Microsoft. So these are certifications coming from them. Interesting.
Pratik, any closing thoughts?
Very well curated discussion, Pooja. Thank you for that. And Dallas, an absolute pleasure to interact with you and learn so much about what Coursera is doing. I couldn't agree more with Dallas when he says that digital learning and particularly around the professional certifications, when you're getting them from the industry partners, lends so much value. We see that with learners across across industries, where we actually see them seeking out universities to get themselves certified, take on a postgraduate certification or so on. So this is very much a relevant trend, and this is something which organizations also need to double dive on and say that how can we enable our employees to also seek this sort of seek this sort of certification. Yeah.
Thank you, Prateek and Dallas, for joining us in this wonderful conversation. This was really insightful, and I'm sure viewers will benefit from it. Thank you so much.